ZYN has gone viral. Their business model is addiction. Addiction is not wellness. But the industry is saying, oh, this is safe, this is good for your health. Well, it's not good for your health to become nicotine addicted. And what's happening is these emerging nicotine delivery products are being heavily used by nicotine naive teenagers who've never before gotten hooked.
Hello, I'm Delaney Ruston, physician and the creator of the now 4 Screenagers movies, and this is the Screenagers podcast. That's right, normally I've been saying 3 films, but we're just now releasing a 4th one that's addressing elementary age children. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Robert Jackler. He's a Stanford physician who's an expert in the tobacco nicotine industry and all the ways they addict young people to their products. He is one of the featured experts in Screenagers Under the Influence and was on a past podcast episode that I really love titled, How Much Do We Really Know About Teen Vaping? Today we're talking about nicotine pouches, these little dissolvable pouches that come in all sorts of flavors, and they're put between the upper or bottom lip and gum. And ask any teen if they have seen posts about these, and I bet you they will say yes. I mean, these things are everywhere on the internet. So grab some summer fruit and listen with tweens or teens in your life, or even 10-year-olds. This is important stuff, and Dr. Jackler is incredibly knowledgeable. I wanted to first just have you introduce yourself. Why is it that you are on this podcast talking about this as an ear surgeon?
Well, first of all, Delaney, thank you for inviting me back to participate in your podcast. I am an ear surgeon and I am a physician. But about 20 years ago, mid-career, I became very interested in how the tobacco industry recruits its customers and how it goes after teenagers, how it goes after women, how it goes after minoritized populations like African Americans and Latinos. And why was that important to me as a physician? Because there is but one leading cause of preventable death and disease in the population of America, and that is tobacco use. It has an enormous, catastrophic effect on people's health, not just death. It's as though, by the way, 3 fully loaded jumbo jets crashed every day. That's how many preventable deaths occur. But vastly more people as they get older. Grandparents, they can't play with their kids on the playground. They're too out of breath. And their body hurts and they're short of breath and they have chest pain because tobacco just rots you out from the inside.
Absolutely. Tell me what's going on with these nicotine pouches.
It's important to realize the origins of what are happening in 2024. The tobacco industry is seeing the decline in use of standard cigarettes, Camel, Marlboro, Pall Mall, all of those, is seeking for ways to A, keep their nicotine addicted customers buying their products, and B, recruit new users, because they know very well that very few 50-year-olds say, hey, I'm going to start smoking today. Their target audience for beginners are teenagers, middle and high school kids, young kids. And so what they're doing is the industry is dressing up like a wolf in sheep's clothing, claiming that they are about harm reduction. They're introducing products that aren't burning leaf with all of its soot and cancer-causing chemicals. They're going with a whole spectrum of what they call harm reduction products. That includes, of course, e-cigarettes that vaporize propylene glycol glycerin flavor and nicotine, but also oral pouches like snooze that are little pillows, ground up tobacco, and of course the white nicotine pouches that don't even have ground up tobacco leaf, they just deliver nicotine.
Called ZYN.
ZYN is the leading brand. There are many other brands, but ZYN has gone viral. Now, chewing tobacco, ordinary chewing tobacco is very deadly, causes a lot of mouth cancer and throat cancer and even other forms of cancer like urogenital cancer. On the other hand, these pouches, nobody knows for sure, but they have an inert substance like cellulose, and they just deliver nicotine. And what's happening is these emerging nicotine delivery products are being heavily used by nicotine naive teenagers who've never before gotten hooked. And once they're hooked, they start to explore the whole world of tobacco products.
Let's then talk about trend in these pouches. I've been talking with my patients, young people, just how it has flooded the internet. Philip Morris behind it, lots of money. Young people have no fears of it, and it's just gaining popularity. I don't know the exact numbers, but can you speak a little bit about this epidemic of what I call epidemic of these pouches?
Absolutely. So they're gone viral on college and high school campuses.
Yeah.
These pouches are being heavily marketed worldwide. Now, reflecting back to the beginning of the surge of electronic cigarettes that began around 2015 with JUUL, we're seeing a very similar trajectory for a particular product of these pouches called ZYN. And all the advertising, and I have full disclosure, I've done a nearly 200-page report on nicotine pouch marketing for the World Health Organization that's coming out in the next couple of months. And I've also done a very in-depth study of how ZYN has been marketed and promoted. And I can tell you, they have faithfully copied all of the marketing tropes that made cigarettes so successful in the 20th century. Today's teenagers are on social media. So guess what? Where are these nicotine pouches advertising? They can't buy ads on social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They can't buy it. But what they can do is they can do organic pages for the brand and then promote it widely through hashtag use to other areas of the internet. And it only costs them what it costs them to make the image or make the video. There's no fee for posting the advertising. A TV commercial, a radio commercial costs a lot of bucks, but this is incredibly inexpensive. They take their ads, which are on their own organic social media channel, and promote them virally across the internet to an enormously greater audience who don't necessarily have any interest whatsoever in nicotine products, but nevertheless, because they're also watching these hashtags that are completely unrelated to smoking, they see them and are influenced by them and are recruited to become basically members of the tobacco company's marketing department by professing what a cool thing it is to put that pouch under your lip. And of course, teenagers, they kind of have antenna for advertisers. If they know somebody's advertising to them, they think, oh, well, that won't influence me. Of course it does, but not nearly as much as a trusted friend. And if your friend posts online in a way that praises ZYN pouches, that's going to have a potent effect.
So, Rob, these posts about Zyns, what are they saying?
We have literally over 1,000 individual ZYN ads. Many are videos, many are still, which we've analyzed. ZYN. Now, why the name ZYN? ZYN is meant to evoke Zen. The leading promotion strategies of ZYN is a phrase called find your Zen. Now think about that. It's a synonym to Zen. Find your Zen. And over they suggest that it will make you peaceful and calm. It is the pharmaceuticalization of the advertising of ZYN, that it somehow calms you, it makes you mellow, it changes your mood in a favorable way. And it's utter nonsense. All that the nicotine does is it makes you crave it and feel absolutely miserable if you don't get it. So the only reason you feel better with nicotine is because the absence of it due to addiction causes a terrible feeling in your body. That is one of their techniques. The other technique that they use a lot is they show young people with active sports, climbing a mountain, playing football and baseball, all of these things, all of their advertising on social media, which, by the way, is virtually all of their advertising.
Let's talk briefly about flavors, because this is, of course, one of the ways these pouches have become so popular.
Unlike cigarettes, which since 2000 could not have sweet and fruity flavors, they could have minty flavors with menthol, at least for now, but not in every state, because some states and many cities have banned mint and menthol. On the other hand, the e-cigarette products and the oral pouch products come in every sweet and fruity flavor you can imagine. And we know from the national surveys the government does that the vast, vast majority of teens who use any kind of nicotine product use a sweet and fruity flavored nicotine product or a minty one. Some of these e-cigarettes and pouches are flavored for tobacco with alcohol flavors, pina colada, all of these alcohol drinks. What's a teenager is going to think about that is you can break two adult taboos, smoking and drinking, with a single act. Teens want to do things forbidden to them by adults. I mean, it's a natural thing.
Because they're margarita flavor kind of things?
That's it.
Yeah.
There's tons of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. In both nicotine pouches and in e-cigarettes.
Rob, what other social media messages are happening with these products?
One of the themes they use is you can't smoke, but you can ZYN anywhere, anytime. So this undermines non-place of smoking regulations where it's not allowed to smoke in a restaurant or bar or your classroom or whatever indoors. So what ZYN is doing, and all of the nicotine pouches, is telling adult smokers, smoke them when you can, and use ZYN to keep from withdrawing from nicotine up under your lip. It's a subtle pouch, very discreet. A cigarette puts out puffs. It smells bad. It's in your mouth. Everyone can see it. But this just is a little bulge under your lip, and that's all it does. And so when you're on an airplane, when you're on a train, when you're in class, you can keep your nicotine level high.
Just talking with you, Rob, I mean, this is so worrisome, how easy it is to use these pouches and the nicotine addiction that can result.
So the company says use pouches to quit smoking. Well, a few people do that. But most people that use pouches actually deepen their addiction and make less likely quitting. On the other hand, what's happened, it's become fashionable and virally popular amongst teens. It is on such a rapid upward. All you have to do is look at the Philip Morris International 2023 end-of-year statement and the Q1. The profits from ZYN, the sales of ZYN, are hooking like a logarithmic thing, just like JUUL did in the first couple of years on the market. And it's largely driven not by adult smokers. It's largely driven by pouch users in adolescents and young adults. And that's introducing more of the young generation to nicotine addiction through using these pouches.
As you were speaking, I got teary-eyed and I had to stop the tears because my work is so much with people facing addictions, young people and older people. And for listeners who haven't experienced addiction, the living under that chain is such a burden and painful for so many people. It really, it's an emotional topic. And I'm just so blessed to be talking with you about this. One of the things that we do know also is that many people who do start with just these kind of products do then incorporate the cigarettes later on. So I think that is something for listeners to be aware of.
Well, let me touch upon both things that you commented on, Delaney. The first one was about nicotine. Now, the industry, Philip Morris International in particular, is trying to make nicotine seem like a benign addiction like coffee, de-emphasizing how miserable it is and how sticky it is. And of course, what addiction is what it feels like when you don't get it, okay? And you feel so awful when you don't get your nicotine fix that you're incapacitated and feel terrible. Now, nicotine addiction is not health and well-being. Nicotine addiction in teenagers has effects that rewire the adolescent developing brain. It leads to behavioral problems, deterioration of performance in school, all sorts of serious problems. And the Surgeon General of the US recognizes these kinds of lasting changes in the developing brain go through age 25. And almost all people who are going to be smokers have started by the age of 25.
Last thing I want to talk about on this topic is helping young people to, let's just think about stopping these products. So if somebody is using Zyns frequently and is interested in stopping, what would you recommend to them? Let's say we have an 18-year-old who's using Zyns.
Yeah. So one possibility would be gradually declining to wean yourself away from addiction. So for example, if you've been using 6 milligram pouches, go down to 4 milligram and 2 milligram. Use them less often. Exert some self-control and discipline. Use them less often and gradually wean yourself off, right? Now, there are products like nicotine gum that has a de-escalating ladder of concentrations, but not if you put, 4 pouches under your upper lip and 3 pouches under your lower lip. No, that'll give you huge amounts of nicotine, deepen your addiction, and make it more difficult. So gradually weaning off the product is one way to do it. Or seek help from a pediatrician or an addiction specialist, which your parents will certainly support to help get you off of it.
Yeah. And for listeners, it's really important that they know about online groups that teens can join anonymously, support groups. The big one is called Quit the Hit. It's with an online actual person, a coach that is meeting over time in an anonymous way with young people. They're happening via chats on Instagram. It was created by the Hope Lab and UCSF Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education. And then there's also the Truth Initiative, has an online texting program that's called This Is Quitting. And it's not with a real coach person behind it, but there's all sorts of automated reminders and tips and strategies for letting urges pass and reinforcing positive messages. The data is good for teens who want to quit. This can be a really helpful way.
The main thing to remember, if you've broken your cycle of addiction,
yes,
don't have it be your crutch at times of crisis.
Exactly.
Because people then resume it. And so, lots of studies show people who have been nicotine free for a month, 6 months later, they lose their job and they start overeating and they go back to smoking.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And in our office, our medical offices, this is what we do. We recommend patches. You keep it at a certain dose for a while, and then you use a patch that's a lower dose. We also have medicines, and we're really believing in using both at the same time. It's gums, it's lozenges, it's chewing normal gum, and then really having plans for when those urges come. What are you going to do? Because what I always say to my patients, young and old, your brain is going to lie to you. And they laugh because they all of a sudden realize the things that the brain will say, oh, just this one time, or you know what, I'm going to do it next time. And it'll just say all these things. And unless you have an escape route at that moment that the brain is going to lie because it's been wired to want that reward, it's going to try to do everything it can. What are we going to do for those moments? And that's part of the behavioral health and counseling that goes with this.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, it's always just such a treat to talk with you, so I can't thank you enough.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me today, Delaney.
Thanks for listening today. And please follow the Screenagers podcast, which is the same thing as subscribing. And rate and review it if you have a minute. This really helps spread the word. We have show notes at screenagersmovie.com, where you can also learn about our Screenagers movies, sign up for my weekly blog about parenting, and search topics of hundreds of past blogs. Meanwhile, we'd love to hear your ideas for future podcast episodes. Email me at delaney@screenagersmovie.com. This Screenagers podcast episode was produced by me, your host, Delaney Ruston, Lisa Tabb, and our sound editor was Alan Gofinski.